Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well this evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to go over some of the changes that came into effect on May 19th, so last Monday, with the Residential Tenancies Act. This evening, it's just a nice brief overview of what has changed and hopefully a little bit more of a detailed explanation than what we've put out in emails and socials. I will have a Q&A, so there is the opportunity to ask questions in the chat within the web system there to ask questions and that, and I will come to those at the end for you. So please, throughout the tonight, feel free to ask any questions that you do have. This is a first for us, so hopefully it runs nice and smoothly, but I'm looking forward to doing a few more of these if they're successful. So I'll get into it for you guys. So as of May 19th this year, the legislation changed for the Residential Tenancies Act. This was some propositions put forward last year. It's been going on for about 6 months, back and forth through government policies and Parliament, and that the REI has had a lot of to do with sort of maybe changing some of the rules. There were quite some heavy rule changes, and thankfully some of those haven't come to pass. But we'll go through tonight with what has come into effect. The first one I'll touch on, it's probably one I've had the most questions on, and that's pets. So pets within a rental property now, tenants are able to fill out an application form. There is a prescribed application form. This is done through Fair Trading or New South Wales Fair Trading's website. They will fill that out, send that through to their agent or landlord if they've got both contact details, and the agent or landlord will have 21 days to respond to that request. No response is an automatic approval. Now, in terms of declining a pet, there is only going to be a set reason why we can do that. I'll go through those reasons tonight, but the hard part for us is none of these have been tested yet. So if we do decline on this, the application will go to NCAT for a hearing, but we don't know how NCAT will rule. So we are flying somewhat blindly still, but learning as we go along. Some of those reasons. Max number of pets that can be approved is going to be 4. However, in Sutherland Shire, where most of our properties are, council has a limit of 2 dogs and 2 cats. So we will have those limits in place. Part of the ruling does say while the tenant can have up to 4, it does revert back to council regulations. Another reason for it is that the pets could exceed the bond amount. Now, that can be quite easy to be done with pets, depending on the property. Again, we're not sure how this could be tested through NCAT. So we're not sure how that reason will go for yet, but it is a reason that we can decline pets. Another reason that we will have to decline pets is if it's not suitable for the pet. So if we've got a unit and we've got working dogs, for example, there will be a chance to look at declining that application on that basis. But again, we haven't had these tested, so it is going to be a little bit of a learning process for the next few months over what the NCAT and that will accept as a reasonable, basically a reason to say no. All this will go through the application form. The tenant, we can have certain conditions on that in terms of what the animal's allowed to be. It is going to be hard to say that the dog can't come inside or the cat can't come inside. And again, we'll be working through these challenges as we learn more and more cases go through NCAT. So we're going to be watching those and keeping an eye on them so we can continually learn with these rule changes. In terms of pets as well, a common question I've been getting asked is, can you increase the rent or can we ask for more bond? Unfortunately, no. The rent and the bond is the agreed upon amount. We cannot increase that due to them having a pet. So that is one of the main common questions I've got, but feel free if you do have any other questions, please do let us know. More than happy to answer some questions for you guys at the end. One of the other big changes is the notices periods for termination. So currently, so I shouldn't say currently because we're past May 19th, but previously, on a periodic lease. So a periodic lease is a lease that's not in effect in the sense that it's past the expired period and the tenants are rolling month to month. It can be called a continuing lease, a rolling lease, or a periodic lease. That notice period to end that was 90 days. It is still 90 days. The major difference now is that a reason must be given. In New South Wales, we used to have what was called a no grounds termination. That has disappeared. I'll go through those reasons a little bit in a little bit time, but I'll go through the end of fixed term tenancy notices first. In the end of fixed term tenancies, that used to be 30 days notice prior to the end of the lease. So let's say your lease was due to end on the 30th of the month. We could give 30 days notice up to the 30th. Even on the 30th, we could give 30 days notice for the tenant to vacate. Now, that notice period, if the lease is over 6 months in length, has gone to 90 days. If the lease is 6 months or less, that notice period is 60 days. And I touched on the reasons. This is probably the biggest change that we have, is that a reason now needs to be given why you are terminating the lease. They are prescribed. They have given us a list. Unfortunately, we've lost, there's no more no grounds termination. So we're not able to just terminate for no reason. There must be a reason given. And with that reason, there must be evidence for that reason. And I'll go through what evidence is required as well. On those items in terms of what needs to be, or what the reasons can be: selling a property, you've got friends or family moving into the property, you are going to do renovations, you are going to demolish the property, you are not going to have the property be a rental for a period of 12 months. So you may switch that to an Airbnb. These all are reasons that are allowed to be given. However, evidence is going to need to be supplied with these. For example, a sale of a property. Let's say you wish to terminate the tenancy because you're looking to sell the property. You will need to provide an agency agreement. So that's the paperwork you would sign with a selling agent, or a contract for sale. So you would get that drawn up through your conveyancer or solicitor, and they would draw that up for the sale. Generally, that's going to be harder to get. The easier option would generally be the agency agreement with your agent. I know I've spoken to the sales team here to explain that, and I know that the team here will be more than accommodating to help our landlords with that. And obviously the property management team happy to help with that as well. Let's say you've got friends or family going to be moving in. A written stat dec is something that we will have to supply to the tenants to show that you'll be looking to have that happen in terms of the move-in. A demolition, a contract for a demolition of the property will need to be given. And for renovations, this one's a little bit more vague. They would like quotes and a schedule of works to appear. It's going to be a little bit tricky in some cases to get, and we'll learn over time when things go through NCAT if they do, on what's acceptable. But will be looking to have a scope of works, quotes, and written information from the trades on that they can start on X date. And that's what we're aiming to do. The other big change to these is your exclusion periods. So this is brand new here. What that means is for certain termination notices, you will have an exclusion period on how long you can leave that property empty, or how long you must leave that property empty before you can re-let it. So for example, if you list that property, you send a termination, I should say, for sale, and let's say you put it on the market for sale and we're 2 months into the campaign, it doesn't sell, or you've had a change of circumstances. The rule around a sale termination is that you're not able to release that property for 6 months, which is going to be, it's pretty hard, pretty tight for a lot of landlords. We know things that do change. Fair Trading have said we'll be able to apply for an exemption. Now, with that exemption, we're not sure yet on the process. We haven't done one yet. We don't know how long that is going to take, but I believe, and from the information that we have been given, that is, if there was a genuine attempt to sell the property, that the exemption would be given to you. But again, unfortunately, we're still learning, and we're flying a little bit blind on those. But hopefully, when we have more information, we'll be a little bit more well-versed to give you that. Friends or family moving in, there is a concern that if you have friends or family moving in and they're going to be renting it off you, where that sits, because you do have an exclusion period on that as well of 6 months. Again, we'd probably have to look at lodging an exemption with Fair Trading that you're able to lease that property to your family member. Again, and I apologise, I know I keep going back to that. We're still a little bit unsure on those, but as soon as we know more, we will keep our landlords and clients up to date. common question that I've been getting is how are they going to track this? So as of 1st of July, agents will get an email once a bond is released or claimed, and we must disclose what the reason for that move out was, be that if the tenant gave notice, if the landlord gave notice, if there was a breach of the tenancy. The tenants will also get this email, and Fair Trading and the bond board will be tracking them. So hence that if we say that the property was for sale, termination, sorry, was due to a sale, and the tenant also says that, that'll be fine, that'll be ticked off. But that property will be marked that it can't be released, or they don't want to see another bond on that for that exclusion period unless there's been an exemption sought. How that system will work, we're not 100% sure. That's how it's been explained to us. So that, again, will be a little bit of a learning process for everyone, and how that tracks. Hence, we've had a few questions of, well, if I have it with one agent, it doesn't work, and I can transfer it to another agent, will that apply? Yes, I'll be tracking that through the bond board and through a lot of the property management systems as well. The ATO, for example, does have access into the back end of a lot of these programs to track them. So we're not sure exactly how that'll be policed, but we have been warned. And unfortunately, there's fines for not only the agents, but for the individuals as well. But I don't mean to throw a scare tactic or anything, but sort of just wanting to warn everyone that that's sort of what we've been told as well. And when we know more, we'll be able to guide as well. In terms of rent payments, so this hasn't quite come into effect. Part of it has and part of it has not. This won't affect us too much here at Pulse because we do offer tenants free ways to pay. We do use a direct debit system and also offer a BPay system. However, no more can agents charge tenants to pay rent. There are quite a number of systems out there that tenants would pay 10 cents per debit to have their rent put through that way, especially if they like to pay by credit card and earn points. That is no longer allowed. Coming into effect shortly is what they're calling the Commonwealth's Centre Pay system. Now, this is on already for sort of Centrelink payments and things like this, but it appears that they would like all rent payments to be going through this Centre Pay system. It's currently not ready. We have been told towards the end of the year that this system will be up and running, and it will be mandatory for us to use that. At this time, we don't know what the fees are going to be like using it. We have told that agents and landlords will have a fee to use the system. However, the tenants won't. What those fees look like, we're not sure yet, but we'll advise as soon as we know a little bit more on that. Another one that has been in effect but has changed slightly is rent increases. So we had rent increases that have been once in every 12 months. That still applies. They did close up a loophole of re-signing a new lease every 6 months. However, now we have a greater option to sign, say, longer leases. So previously, if we were to sign a 2-year lease, the issue was that we had to have at the 12-month mark a fixed rental figure for that 2-year lease. Now we don't have to. You have the ability to increase rent even within a fixed term lease, as long as the last increase was more than 12 months ago. So for landlords out there and for tenants, what I think is great, we have the option to sign longer leases, but still have a look to review those rents as well. It's been probably one of the good rule changes for us. It gives us the ability to have longer leases should clients, both tenants and landlord, wish to have those. They're ready for you. In terms of any questions, obviously, feel free to ask, and apologies, I'm looking over here at the notes in that sense. But that's a brief sort of overview of the current changes. Another point I was going to touch on as well was we had a compliance change in March, and I've had a fair few questions around that. And when I talk about compliance, it's around water usage. So I get this, a lot of people get this confused, and it isn't that clear when you go to Fair Trading's website. So I'll do my best now to sort of explain it. For properties that are separately metered for water. So a lot of the units or older units in this area aren't separately metered, so this won't apply to them. But for a lot of the more new units, houses, duplexes, they're separately metered for water. A landlord would pay your connection and sewer costs. The tenant pays for the water usage. To pass that water usage on, we've got to have a flow rate now of less than 9 litres per minute. This applies to shower heads, sinks, not to baths, not to outdoor taps. That applies to those items. This has to be checked, I should say, at the beginning of every tenancy. It's not every 12 months. It's only at the beginning of every tenancy, or if the tenant has reported a leak, when our plumber attends, they will attend and say, we'll fix a leak and can confirm that all taps have a flow rate of less than 9 litres per minute. The other change is that all toilets must have a 3-star rating, and must be dual flush. So in our area, we do have a lot of older homes, especially with that old outhouse toilet. That has to be changed. Thankfully, it's just the system change around, and we'll be doing that at the start of every tenancy to make sure that all the properties are compliant for the landlord, and make sure that we can pass those water usage charges on for you. That sort of gives me a good summary of some of the changes that we've got. We also have a guest tonight, Tony from Grow Home Loans here. He's going to, we've had a lot of interest rate changes and things here, and I believe there's quite a lot of nice products available for landlords at the moment. I know with rates, a lot of our landlords have been doing it tough. So I might flick across to Tony, have a look at some of the questions that have been answered, and I'll come back.
Thanks very much, Lee, and welcome everybody, and appreciate your time tonight. I won't keep you too long. I just wanted to follow on from what Lee mentioned there. As you've probably witnessed there and are experiencing, there are lots of changes, and a lot of them come at a cost, and that's what we're finding with a lot of our clients at Grow Wealth Solutions who are property investors. They may have 1, 2, 3, or many properties in their portfolio, and as an investor, I'm in the same boat. Every dollar adds up, and it's not fun. As much as we love Lee and the team, we don't like hearing from them because it usually means that there's a change that's going to cost money. So at the moment, we're finding it's hard to get the clients to agree to rent rises. So one of the ways we're helping clients control that is helping them to reduce. If we can't do anything with the top line and increase the rent, we're helping them to reduce the bottom line and reduce their interest repayment. So to give an example, the rates have moved really quickly in the last couple of months, and they've moved in the right direction finally. So we're finding on average when our investors come to us and want to restructure or refinance, or sometimes they've come to us and want to actually sell, and we've been able to restructure their debt to become more cost effective so they can keep the property and handle the cost of all these changes. So a typical example that we would see is on an average loan size in our book and around the Shire for investors is around about the $700,000 mark. And it's not hard for us at the moment to get a 0.5% rate reduction on those investment loans, because there's some lenders who have come out there now really aggressive and want to get that early market share, capture that. So to get 0.5% on 700 grand, that works out to be around about $300 a month. So if you think about a rate increase, right, or a rental increase, it's going to be very, very difficult to get $300 a month, which is essentially, $75 a week increase. So if you're struggling with that and other costs, one way to do it is to actually help the bottom line. So we're not affiliated in terms of we don't work for Pulse, but we sit on the side and we service all of the Pulse clients and lots of their landlords. So that was pretty much what I wanted to run through there. And just to let you know, I'll put a link in the chat now. So if anyone needs to chat with either myself or anyone on the team, we're more than happy. What we do is we just do a 10-minute quick session where you can book in at a time that suits, and we can just do a quick, for lack of a better term, pulse check on your loan to make sure that you've got the best rate. And if you don't have the best rate, we're more than happy to provide you with some other options that can hopefully reduce the ownership cost for your property there. So I'll drop that link in the chat, and hopefully get to see you soon. And I'll be hanging around for some questions as well. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. It's always good to have that knowledge, and I would highly recommend any of the landlords there, if you're looking at refinancing or anything, to reach out. I've had a few questions come in. I had a few questions previous to this for people that couldn't make it. So we will be sending this out to a few people as well. And if you ever do want a copy of it, please let us know. Probably the one I've had a couple of times with the evidence requirements, does that mean I have to give the tenant my personal details? How will we protect your privacy? So that's a good question. We are able to redact your personal information. In New South Wales, on all new leases, contact detail for the landlord must be given on the lease, which is generally your email address. We don't give out your contact number. So that would appear on the termination notice, but your personal information, your address, anything like that will be redacted off that evidence. We don't have to include everything. Anything that does need to be included, we will let you know. So for every case is slightly different, especially if it's a sale or a renovation or friends moving in. There are certain things that are needed on those ones compared to others. So we'll run through that. But your personal information, we'll be doing our best, I should say, to protect you guys in that sense. What in terms of, I had a question, how will they know why I terminated my tenant? That just comes back to the bond board. We're going to be forced to fill in those for every property. We get fined if we don't, and we'll have to tick why that tenancy ended. Although we'll be tracking that through that. We can't just say that they've just moved out. I touched on this a little bit, but changing agents after you terminate the tenancy, again, because the bond would change, there'll be a reason listed with that, and they would track it to that property. So that's going to be one that I don't really see a workaround unless we seek exemptions through fair trading for you to release the property. A good one here. What can we do if pets start to damage the property? So the breach of tenancy termination still exists. Now, with a breach of tenancy termination, that's a 14-day termination notice. Obviously, we've got to warn, you give the tenants a warning in sense of that. All inspections are going to be now undertaken one in every 6 months. When a tenant first moves in, one will be done one after 3 months. We'll be checking those, and obviously if there's any damage noted or we can start to see there's going to be issues, we will be letting yourselves know as landlords, and we'll be letting the tenants know as well. We would then have a chat about what stage that's at, if we do need to action that quicker, if it's just a nice email to start off with. But if the pet is damaging the property and they don't rectify it, there is a breach of tenancy termination that can still be sent in that sense, which is that 14-day notice. If the tenant applies with no pets on their application, can we make it so they can't ever have pets in the property? No, unfortunately not. It is, and I shouldn't say unfortunately, I will say I'm one with animals myself. Sometimes I think my kids do a bit more damage than my dogs, but look, I will say 9 out of 10 people with pets are pretty good as well. It is obviously the minority that ruins it, but that application doesn't matter if they apply with that application day 1 of their tenancy or day 200 of their tenancy. They can apply at any time with that, and we've got the 21 days to respond and can only deny them on the prescribed reasons within that form. You can, a question here, can I get my tenants to sign a lease first, then issue them with a notice of rental increase? Technically, yes, as long as the last rental increase was not done within the 12 months. So if a tenant signs a new lease and you're, say, 3 months into that lease and that's 12 months ago when the rent increase was last done, you can increase that rent within the fixed term of that lease there. What are the chances of me getting a fine if I don't follow the rules? We don't know. I think at the beginning people will be out there looking to make an example, and that. So we don't know exactly, but we'll be making sure that we stay within the guidelines, and we'll guide you if there's any questions or concerns. We are going to make sure that we do our utmost to protect your interests, and guide you down the right path to make sure that everyone stays compliant, and we're all in it together. So we'll make sure that we do our best there. That's a good one here. What happens if I terminate the tenants, change my mind, but they've already found a place, end up moving out? Do I still have an exclusion period? Yes, you would still have an exclusion period. When you send a notice of termination, it can only be rescinded by mutual agreement from both parties. So let's say that you send that notice, you do have a change, you're not going to sell the property anymore, or you're not going to move in. You can rescind that notice, but you also need a rescission from the tenants as well. If the tenants have already found a place and moved, that notice would still stand, and we would then need to look to seek an exemption through fair trading and show evidence as such as why that changed. Maybe they were moving from interstate, changed jobs, found a job, something like that, or you're going to sell, had a chat with an accountant, things have changed. We would then need to show that through an exemption through fair trading. Again, we're not sure how long that will take, but always happy to try that, and we'd guide you again on that there. Do these rules only apply to agents? No, they apply to landlords and agents. Previously, a lot of these rules did only apply to agents, but with these new changes, they've made it very clear that it applies to agents and landlords. So even if under a private agreement, you would have these rules as well. So I think that's it. I'm getting a yes. So guys, thank you for joining us. Hopefully that wasn't too bad for our first one. I quite enjoyed that. So love to keep you guys up to date. Love to make sure that we're keeping all our clients as well versed in the market and changes as we can. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the team. We're more than happy to help, and everyone have a good evening. Thanks, guys.